in radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. The date is March 4th, 2016, and it's time for another Triple Lutz report. This is episode 399. We're one away from 400. I can't even believe it. I've been doing this now for almost 5 years, and hey, just the fact that I'm up to almost 3,500 shows since I started. And thank you, all of you out there who are listening. Don't forget, we're brought to you by Liberty Health Share. It is just an incredible alternative to standard health insurance. And with Liberty Health Share, the enrollment period is always now. Right now, I'm paying $200 per month, down from my premium prior to joining last July, I believe, was $1,150 a month. It means I've saved thousands of dollars. So far, coverage, fine. I'm about to put it to the test myself. I got to get a minor procedure done. My eyelids are drooping because my face is loosening up. Maybe I should just get a facelift. I don't know. But it's going to be a procedure that requires a plastic surgeon, an ocular plastic surgeon, and I guess it'll be several $1,000s worth. I will tell you exactly how it's working for me. But just keep in mind, I've interviewed other people who've used Liberty, have not had a single problem with them, are delighted with the service. The main thing that you're going to have to keep in mind is when you go to the doctor for a standard checkup for not a major procedure, you simply pay the bill yourself. Generally, those doctor's visits from $1 to a couple $100, and then you submit the requisite documentation to Liberty, and they pay you $500 deductible. I mean, it is amazing. I've turned at least half a dozen people of personal friends onto it, and hundreds of you out there have used Liberty Health Share. I can't recommend it enough. Dale Bellis, you've heard him on the show speaking about it. You heard Dr. Elena George, very prominent ears, nose, and throat doctor, ENT from Atlanta, who accepts it and uses it herself. If you want supplemental coverages after, because you can conceivably do that with the savings that you're realizing on your monthly premium, you go to Aflac or some other supplemental medical benefit insurer for a couple $100 a month. You get hospitalization benefits. You get $300, $500 a day. If God forbid you're in the hospital, cancer coverage, additional cancer coverage, accident coverage. There's a plethora of coverages out there that's available to you, and you're still saving a fortune. And you don't have the deductibles. So the doctor's offices, one thing you have to keep in mind, they've never heard of this. They don't know anything about it at this point, but believe me, they're going to know soon. They're a little wary of it, but then you show them the card. If there's a procedure that's more extensive than just a visit, they call up Liberty Health Share. Liberty negotiates a rate for the procedure, and it gets done, and they get paid within 30 days. They wind up loving Liberty Health Share. Didn't mean this to be a commercial for them, but I feel so strongly about them, and the benefits to you are just so amazing that you need to consider them. So let's talk about precious metals. A lot going on there, that's for sure. Craig Hemke, a.k.a. Turd Ferguson, he was on the show. Check out his site, tfmetalsreport.com. He is one of the savviest and best analysts of the precious metal scene. He said, I'm not convinced that this rally is for real in precious metals until I see it cross a certain number. And he gave me a chart. I should have put it up on the show notes, but I forgot. And the chart basically showed a channel, an upside move of the channel, and it was $1,263. Yesterday, on March 3rd, gold just blew past that channel. It closed at around, I don't remember, around $1,265. It was really up. This morning, the jobs number came out, the bogus jobs report. You know that one? You get it right around this time every month, and generally precious metals get smacked down ruthlessly. I looked at my Kitco.com for a second, and it hit $12.50. Upside reversal. It's now up $11.40 the ounce, right around to $1,276 and change. That's hope and change you can believe in. Silver, which has been lagging the entire rally, it's really been behind gold, broke over $15 a couple days ago. It's up 47 cents the ounce to $15.69. So the trolls are still trolling. Oh, gold's going down to 500, gold's down, blah, blah, blah. I ain't believing it. I don't know that this is the long hoped for and awaited rally. I'm not that smart to be able to predict the future. If you can predict the future, please write me. I will adopt you. We'll go to the casino together. We will play the stock market together. Hey, we'll partner up because I don't know anything, and I'm the first to admit it. I do know trends, though. The intermediate trend was against you in precious metals for the past 4 years. It appears that trend has turned. I will feel much better when gold breaks through 1,300. But right now, gold's at its 52-week high. That classifies as, I wouldn't necessarily say a bull market because that's a bit too strong, but it shows that it's a market that's trending upward. Am I telling you to buy gold? No. You need to make those decisions for yourself. I don't hold myself out to be an expert. Well, I am an expert in purchasing gold, storing it, and the various ways to invest in it, but I'm not an investment advisor. I would never tell you to do something. I would only tell you that I'm doing this now. If you want to do it, fine. If you don't, that's okay too. No pressure here. I believe in commodities. I believe in the resource sector. And I do believe that in the long run, all wealth, true wealth, emanates from the earth. Okay? It begins from the earth. Knowledge, what to do with it, is crucial, but you can't have an economy that functions if you don't have a flourishing resource sector that will reward the people who take risks. Okay, in other words, a functioning market, and punish the people who take bad risks, and punish the people who make mistakes, who take risks that they shouldn't have. If you don't have a functioning market, everything's going to go to hell. And because we have not had a functioning market in interest rates, we see what's happened in the oil sector. Got an email from one of the guests that I had on recently, Steve St. Angelo of the SRS Rocco Report. He was kind of challenging my interview with Porter Stansberry about peak oil. And he writes a lot about peak oil on his site, as well as peak metal production. Look, right now, the world is consuming somewhere between 93 million and 95 million barrels a day. The fact is, 20 years ago, it was producing about 80 million. Now, what he writes about is what's called the EROI, Energy Returned on Invested, of U.S. oil discovery and production. In the early 1900s, the U.S. oil industry found 1,200 barrels of oil for each barrel worth of energy consumed in the process. In 1910, U.S. oil discovery, EROI, was 1,200 to 1. Today, it's 5 to 1. Now, this is definitely a very accurate statement that Steve makes, no question about it. It's kind of like when you fill up an airplane with fuel, with jet fuel. Most of the fuel that's consumed is powering the plane to carry all of that fuel. So a portion of the fuel that gets burned is burned as a result of the weight of the aircraft, which is greatly increased when it's fully fueled. Okay, it's kind of the same thing. Right now, the way it's working is that energy production is much more energy intensive than it used to be, with a fracking, with oil tar sands and such. His contention is that it's dropping, and basically that this is a problem. And I agree with him that it is an issue. However, the shale producers are producing much more oil from these wells than was ever anticipated. So I'm not sure that measure is correct in light of the lengthened service life of fracked wells, which is due to proppants that keep open the fractures and better phases of fracking, more phases to it. So I'm not sure about that. But what I do agree with Steve on is that cheap oil has peaked, but there is an amazing quantity of oil in the ground that isn't economical to extract. But back in the day, in the 60s, when this EROI was probably at that point 100 to 1 or 200 to 1, they didn't use secondary recovery of oil and pretty much left about 80% of a well's potential production in the ground. It was just left there. So now they're up to getting about 20 or 30%. And incrementally, they keep getting better and better at it. However, these processes, as you guys in Canada would say, are energy intensive. But as long as you are getting enough of a return on the energy you invest that it's profitable, then we will never have an oil shortage. So the key to all of this is prices. Right now, prices have gone down so much, but interestingly enough, because the production is number of rigs out there, drilling, all that is no longer increasing. It's decreased substantially, I think by about 2/3 in the U.S. I think it went from 1,500 to 600 something rigs. Because that's occurring, the EROI is actually going up because you're not investing a lot of energy to produce new energy. Effectively, the EROI could conceivably be back up over 10. Maybe it's up to 25 to 1. Steve says in the 50s that it was 25 to 1. I've seen other numbers said 100 to 1. The other thing is that back in the good old days, you just drilled a hole and the oil popped out like Texas gold, black gold, Texas tea, as they said in the Beverly Hillbillies. Now, not like that. So peak oil is only peak in that the low-hanging fruit, if you will, has already been discovered and producing. But peak oil in terms of absolute number of barrels produced is a totally different story. Steve, we agree and we disagree on this topic, but the key is it's all about the marginal rate, marginal revenue for each additional barrel of oil. And when that next barrel that you can sell equals your cost of production, you may or may not sell it. But when the barrel actually you get less than the variable cost of production, you won't sell it. Your fixed costs, they're already done. But your variable costs, those are the ones that you want to recover. Just a little note on that. I appreciate the feedback. Steve, you're a great guest and enjoyed it. Hey, by the way, if you haven't heard about it yet, April 21st, 2016, Andy Hoffman and I are holding an event with Miles Franklin sponsoring it, and Andy Schechtman, who's the CEO and co-founder of Miles Franklin, will be there. Date and location, just send me an email and I will send you a link to the invitation. Basically, the cost is $29. If you want to watch the online broadcast of the meeting, it's $15. And in light of gold's recent advance, the timing couldn't be better. We're going to give presentations, brief presentations. We'll take Q&As on precious metals, bullion, on financial markets, on the global economy, any topic you want to discuss. We will take questions until we're done, and we won't leave until then. April 21st starts at 6:30 p.m. We're at the Coconut Creek Sheridan, but just come to my site. I'll have a link up there very shortly. In the meantime, send me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. How do people in New York City spell relief? Or I should say, finally, there's relief for New Yorkers. As if we needed more proof of New York City's impending fail, just got word. The New York County DA, Cyrus Vance Jr., announced that his office would no longer prosecute offenders who were caught urinating in public, engaging in public consumption of alcohol, and a number of other so-called low-level offenses. So since Comrade de Blasio took over as mayor, the city council has been pushing to decriminalize these acts. And we've got lots of cites to this. And now it appears that Vance has done the dirty work for the council. However, take heart, the offenders can still be issued summonses and will be arrested if they have outstanding warrants. He spun his motives as an efficiency measure that will enable his office to concentrate on serious crime, and it will reduce the DA's and the court's overburdened docket. Note, this policy applies to just one of New York's 5 boroughs, Manhattan, but how long do you think it's going to be before the others adopt this work-saving measure? Vance also alluded to a humane aspect of his decision, stating that offenders won't show a record of the arrest for such minor crimes. Look, at least in San Francisco, they constructed an outdoor open urinal in Doris Park to deal with the epidemic of public urination. New York City has instead opted to turn all of Manhattan into an open urinal. Which policy is more conducive to a civil society? This is yet another example of defining deviancy down, which is a phrase coined by the late Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. It's also a repudiation of Mayor Giuliani and Police Commissioner William Bratton's broken windows theory of policing, which postulated that allowing minor crimes to occur in a neighborhood creates the appearance of lawlessness and will only encourage more serious offenses in the long run and cause a deterioration of the neighborhood. Coming on the heels of de Blasio's war on the police, the end of stop and frisk, and a general de-emphasis on keeping the city safe, is it any wonder that murders, rapes, and robberies were up in 2015? More importantly, by not enforcing these so-called quality of life offenses, civility is diminished. Summonses are not an effective deterrent. They are routinely ignored by these lower elements of society, since the worst that can happen is that they'll receive a fine and they're judgment-proof and have no visible means of paying these fines anyway. It's no wonder that the police view writing summonses as a waste of their time and do their best to avoid it at all costs unless rigid quotas are imposed upon them. So there you have it. Yet another step by the progressives to make life easier and more humane for the antisocial elements of society, and yet another reason for those who can to flee the city before it's too late. Think about that. New York City circling the bowl. Actually, no, New York City has become the bowl. Just the stuff that happens these days, you just shake your head and wonder, what are they thinking? You just don't know what they're going to come up with next. It is an idiotic, stupid means of addressing this problem. You got to wonder, what is it with these people? I just don't get it. I do get it, but it never ceases to really, really amaze me. So here's a great article about rehabilitation that occurs in prison sometimes. This is just such a great story. It's like the American dream. Guy's an ex-drug dealer. He's now raking in cash after learning how to play poker in prison. So the guy, he served 15 years in prison for dealing crack, which is absurd in itself. What a waste of time. But he learned a valuable, marketable skill behind bars and has since become a millionaire cleaning up at poker tournaments across the country. This guy's name is Joe Reddick, African-American guy, 47. Biggest haul to date. He won $217,000 plus at the Borgata Winter Poker Open Tournament in Atlantic City a couple months ago. And he perfected his game playing with fellow cons, including a Colombian drug lord known as Pepe, at the 11 federal prisons he was in along the East Coast. So I assume he was a very successful drug dealer. He said he first became interested while watching inmates play 7-card stud for candy bars at a county jail in Guilford, North Carolina, where he was awaiting sentencing. And he asked the guy who was running the game if he could play. He recalled, I said, but I don't know how to play. He was like, we'll teach you as long as we go along. We'll teach you as long as we go along. And he lost about $7,000 worth of Snickers bars, but that's how he learned. And my late father, always said, anytime you go into a new business, you're going to pay for lessons, and he sure did. But by the time he got to his first federal lockup in Allenwood, Pennsylvania, he was running his own table. And he said, we gambled on anything that had value, from cans of tuna fish to sweatsuits and tennis shoes. People were losing more than they were losing in the county jail. They were losing thousands and thousands of dollars. If it keeps them from rioting and doing bad stuff, let them gamble. You know, they can't smoke anymore. They can't even gamble for cigarettes. I guess they could gamble for cigarettes, but they couldn't smoke them. Maybe we need e-cigarettes in prison. Think? I think so. He said, despite the surroundings, the games were civilized, in some ways more civilized than games outside in freedom, where you can get held up and, you have to pay for protection in New York City because you could have hundreds of thousands of dollars. He said they were gentlemen. The thugs were over here and the poker players were over here. He knew he wanted to be a professional gambler when he caught the World Series of Poker on ESPN one day. And he said, I was like, wow, they're really playing this out in the world. I didn't know that until I saw it on TV, he said. When he was released in 2008, he took a bus with $500 in cash straight to Atlantic City's Taj Mahal, formerly owned by the Donald. Been in bankruptcy I don't know how many times, and for that reason, don't vote for Donald Trump. He walked out with $2,500. He never looked back, he said. Now, between tournaments and casino cash games, his total haul is $1.5 million. I hope the feds aren't watching this. He's liable to get a tax bill, and he sends most of his cash to his 5 kids and puts the rest back into poker. That's called reinvesting in your business. His goal is to be the first African-American winner of the World Series of Poker. That's the dream, he said. I won't stop until I win it. So poker actually is a game that I'm okay at, as long as I don't get rattled. I love playing it, but to play it for a living in a casino, it's a very cynical existence. You meet people who are addicted, who have no control, who are literally betting the mortgage money, the rent money, the food money. I had to stop going to casinos. I liked it a little too much. I wasn't winning. I wasn't losing. I was down overall on blackjack, but there was just so much pain in the casino, I had to stop going. It really started to depress me in a lot of ways and made me feel not good. I said, all right, enough of that. I have to stop, and I'm done with it. And boom, that was the end of that. I just say, if you're really good at it, then you should do it. But it's just a really negatively charged environment that preys upon people's weaknesses. Poker is a game of skill. If you're going to put up your money, then you take the win or you take the loss, and that's it. The rest of the casino is just a way for them to steal your money legally. And my father was a professional gin player. For that, he was a really talented poker player because he had like stone cold poker face, and he was very observant. He could read people, but he didn't like it because poker is based on deception. Deception that you either have a hand or deception that you don't have a hand, and getting other people to buy into your deception. He switched to gin rummy because gin rummy is strictly strategy, 60%, 65% skill, 30, 40% luck, and he could have made his living doing that, just playing in country club card rooms, but he just didn't really want to spend his life doing it. I mean, he made so much money doing it, but he liked it as entertainment. That was his release, and that's the way he kept it. But everybody has to find their own way in life, and luckily I wasn't born with his card skill, because I would have taken the easy way out and just lived in a casino my whole life, or whatever. But thank goodness I didn't have to worry about that. Hey, so California is an insane place. And I'm not talking about the trends and the people, crazy people and all that, although they definitely are, but just the way that they don't face reality. Right now, the government there wants to build a water tunnel to save the Delta River smelt. This was on Fox News, and even as it squeezes the taxpayers to repair bridges and roads, which they're not doing, they're just giving it to the unions because it's such a union state that everything costs 5 times as much. Overtaxed. Everything is about 20% higher in California than the rest of the country. It's even more expensive in a lot of respects than New York City, if you could believe it. Cash-strapped California is planning a $15 billion water tunnel designed, at least in part, to save a tiny fish that may already be extinct. It's called the WaterFix Twin Tunnels Project, championed by Governor Moonbeam Jerry Brown, but opposed by environmental group and taxpayers alike. It's going to bore a hole 150 feet underground to the side of the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta, and the plan is to divert fresh water for thirsty farms and communities throughout the state without disturbing the habitat of protected species that live in the delta, including the finger-long delta smelt. All right, and to a large extent, they say this seemingly innocuous little fish controls much of what we can or cannot do in the delta. There was a lawsuit over it, and basically all this water gets dumped into the ocean, fresh water. The 3-inch fish have been protected under the Federal Endangered Species Act and are considered by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to be a crucial barometer for the health of West Coast waterlands. Maybe they should find another barometer, I think. Once they thrived in the Delta, that's the hub of the state's water supply, fed by the Sierra Nevada snowmelt, carried to the Pacific by the Sacramento River. So the Sacramento River gets all this snowmelt, and it runs into the Pacific. And this delta smelt, which is probably extinct already, is going to spend $15 billion to try to save something that's dead. I mean, it's lunacy. He had this plan before. Basically, it's going to siphon off water without disrupting the flow of the river or harming wildlife. There'll be a bunch of intakes on the bank of the river. There would be these 2 40-foot wide tubes, 150 feet underground, that would carry the water 30 miles away to pumping plants that would just then push it through canals, crisscrossing hundreds of miles of the valley, farmland, and cities as far away as San Diego. Right now, what they're doing is letting much-needed fresh water flow past parched farms and communities and empty into the ocean. That's just insane. I mean, half the state's water gets lost that way. The last viaduct that was built in California was built by Governor Moonbeam's father. I think it got finished in the early 80s or the late 70s, that aqueduct, and the population has doubled or tripled since that time. They got to do something. This is just really urinating away the money, and there's just no reason for it. It's just lunacy to spend $15 billion on a state that's going broke. Why they do these things, I wish I knew, but they keep doing them, and it's just the way it is. You don't like telemarketing calls? I don't either. You know, they breach the do not call list all the time. All my numbers are on the do not call list. I still get calls from these idiots all over the place. So a guy created a robot. He switches the call over, and the robot asks questions and annoys the heck out of him. So it started a few years ago. This guy, Roger Anderson, telemarketer, calls him with a pitch, and rather than talk to the sales guy, he handed the phone to his young son, and the telemarketer cursed at the little boy, and that was it. He had it. So average people harassed by telemarketers don't have many options. Well, I do. I just hang up on them. You know, I know instantly. The other thing is, when you think the call you're getting might be from a telemarketer on an auto dialer, for about 2 seconds after you answer, or 3, don't say a word. If it is a telemarketer with a predictive dialer, the thing just hangs up on you when you don't talk to it. That's the thing to do. Pick up the phone, answer the phone, don't say anything. That should be your first response to every call. And then if somebody says hello, talk to them. But if it's a predictive dialer, it'll hang up on you thinking that it got an answering machine or voicemail. Anderson, he's not like an ordinary telephone user, and he was trying to figure out a way to solve the problem, and he created the Jolly Roger Telephone Company. Whenever he hears from a telemarketer, he patches the call through to his robot, puts his call on mute, and lets his bot do the talking. Basically, it doesn't have artificial intelligence or anything. It does understand speech patterns and inflections, so it monitors what the telemarketer is saying, and then it does its best to try to keep the person on the end of the line engaged. Sometimes the robot just has a little fun using recorded lines spoken by Anderson. It'll say something like, "I just woke up from a nap. I took some medicine and I'm really groggy. can you go a little slower? Sometimes it interrupts the telemarketer to ask questions. Do you drink coffee? Or you sound like somebody I went to high school with. And the idea is to keep the telemarketer on the call for as long as possible. The longer the conversation goes on, the more eccentric the robot becomes. In one sequence, the robot tells the telemarketer that a bee landed on his arm and asks the telemarketer to keep talking as he focuses on the bee. Oh, you just can't make this stuff up. I mean, this guy Roger has too much time on his hands. That is for sure. I watched the debate for about 5 minutes. Just can't stand watching him anymore. Just give it to Trump already so we can all get on with our lives and forget about this nonsense. Sick of it already. I don't even vote. Florida, insane place in its own right, as crazy as California. Got this guy. He's 18 years old. You might have seen him on my Facebook page, Dr. Malachi Love Robinson. But he's not a doctor. He's 18, but he posed as a doctor. It's just amazing. He was in a hospital, and he's been caught doing this multiple times. And they send in an undercover agent, and he does an exam on the agent, and then they arrest him. And he just got arrested again. Evidently, you can't get a real doctor to make house calls, but you can get fake doctors to make house calls. So I guess if that's the best you can do is a fake doctor, then you have to accept it. So he goes to some elderly woman's home, steals her credit card, her checks, and he's doing a whole big identity theft deal. And boom, they've arrested him again. They think he's nuts because this is Palm Beach County after all. So they're getting him a mental evaluation. Perhaps a lot of our politicians should also get mental evaluations. And prior to running, and at least we would know if they were sociopaths or not, right? I mean, come on, this is... Man, and it's like all these people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to medical school, and this kid just puts PhD at the end of his name, and boom, he's a doctor, like Doogie Howser. You got to love it. So, predictions, well, Trump is going to be the nominee, whether they like it or not. They have waited for too long to try to knock him off his game. The attitude of his opponents, I'm talking Marco Sweaty Shorty Rubio and Ted the Booger Cruz, they're too strident. They're just trying to score points. They're not authentic. And Trump, when he insults people and puts them down, that's one of the more endearing parts of his personality. When these guys do it, it is really hideous and obnoxious because they don't know the art of the insult. I think after Donald wins president and he spends 2 terms, he should write a book called The Art of the Insult, because he just knows how to do it and get you laughing. Humor. You know, can you ever picture Marco Rubio laughing at anything? At a joke? If somebody lets out gas in the car, this guy is just a stiff, like Trump said. And Cruz, man, I don't think he's ever laughed in his life. He wouldn't know a joke if he stumbled into the improv during Jerry Seinfeld's show. I mean, and Hillary, forget. Oh, her laugh is so fake and forced. None of them understand humor. To have an effective put down, to effectively put somebody down, the art of the put down, the art of the insult, you got to use humor. And he could be self-deprecating. I mean, he starts out, hey, nobody's ever made fun of my hands before. And you know what? The rest of my anatomy is just fine. So don't worry about it. I mean, it's hysterical. And who gets up at a political debate and does that anyway? The guy is a brilliant comedian, and I don't think anything is going to change here, but I just love the humor, and I love the entertainment value, because look, we go to movies, we go to shows, we go to concerts, we take trips. What is the goal? To be entertained, to get your mind into an enjoyable state, to take your focus off of more serious matters. So if you can watch a guy for free on TV who is as funny as Trump, and he is hysterical to me, but maybe that's the New Yorker in me, and you can watch him for free. In some ways, they're almost willing to pay you to watch him. What is better than that? I just can't see anything that could possibly be better than that. One other thing, Jason Hartman has an event going on March 12th, 2016 in Salt Lake City. Go over to jasonhartman.com/Lutz. You can win free tickets to go there. You can also, if you don't win the ticket, get a substantial discount on the ticket price. Jason's events are some of the best out there. They're entertaining. They're fun. Sorry, not free like Donald Trump, but not everybody can be. Just has an outlook on life and the world that I find refreshing. I think you're really going to enjoy seeing him. You don't have to invest with him unless you want to. You could do worse than investing with Jason. I've met hundreds of his clients, and nobody's bitching to me. They're all happy as can be, and been to 2 or 3 of his events. He's been a sponsor of the show for years, not a demanding sponsor, all around great guy. He never attempts to sell you anything. It's amazing. So go over to jasonhartman.com/Lutz. That's Jason, HARTMAN.com/Lutz, and sign up for it. Hey, Salt Lake City, beautiful place. You go skiing there if you like. Just check it out. It's been another Triple Lutz Report. Kerry Lutz signing off.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.